Hi, I'm Adamsen, and I'll be leading the Workforce Planning and Analytics training next week, and I'm super excited about it. And I want to take about 10 to 12 minutes of your time to go through some concepts that we'll be discussing once we're together. And I'd like you to noodle on these concepts so we can be efficient and effective when we actually get in the same room. With that in mind, I want to jump right in and say a few things about the actual concepts, workforce planning analytics. And how important they are to me personally, and why I do this work, and why I believe we're all in the HR profession or talent profession. First and foremost, if we don't do this well, then people suffer. And if we do it well, people benefit greatly. And more specifically, if we do not get the right amount of people to execute the strategy, then people are working long hours, they're commuting long distances, they are not spending time with their family. Similarly, if they're not in the right role, if they don't have the appropriate skills and behaviors and so forth, then they might not be well suited and set up for success in a particular role. So what I'm alluding to is workforce planning, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Similarly, with analytics, unless we understand the underlying dynamics of the economic system for which we're in, for which sometimes we're responsible, then we're not going to serve our internal customers as well as we should. Also, we might make decisions that are misguided and do not reap the desired return. So we can increase the likelihood that our investments, like in learning, in compensation, performance management, and so forth, actually deliver the desired return if we get analytics right. So it's not esoteric. It's not highfalutin stuff. It's something that is here to stay. In fact, workforce analytics is analogous to market research, which has been around for decades. Similarly, workforce planning is analogous to supply chain management. And the discipline of researching supply chains has, again, been around for decades. I want to be respectful of the fact that people are not widgets and they appreciate over time, whereas obviously hard assets depreciate. That being said, the research discipline is very mature and we can learn a lot from it. So I'll introduce some of those concepts over the next few minutes. The key thing I want you to get out of this, however, is not only to understand some of these concepts and think about them leading into next week, but I also want you to get comfortable with some of the terminology that we're going to be using. And if you can get comfortable with some of that terminology and certainly ask some clarifying questions at the outset of our time together, then I think that will serve us very well, because one of the key critical success factors, that's a little redundant, but run with me, of getting this done right in organizations is actually singing off the same song sheet, having common terminology, having a terminology dictionary, if you will. Not only that, but a data dictionary, so you have all your metrics defined and consistent. Again, I'll get to that next week, but the language that we use in the room together and that you use with your internal customers, that you use with each other, that you use with Kirsten and others who are going to help you develop this insight is going to be critically important. So to launch right into that, one of the key things that I want to define right up front is workforce planning. I mean, what the heck is that? So I want to draw this graph. Oh, I forgot to put that up there. Boeing's awesome. Draw this graph. We have time here and we have quantity of labor here. And we have certain cohorts or job families, and they have certain trend lines here that lead into today. And this might be going back, say, I'll say 6 months, might be going back 12 months. So you have these trends, and these trends are used to identify forward-looking projections, right? So we might look like this, we might look like this. And again, these are different job families, and we're going forward here, say another 6 months, 12 months. This time horizon could be 24 months, 36 months, whatever is appropriate for your organization, but certainly there's going to be some forecasted supply. So I'm going to put an S here for supply for these different job families. The trick is, this supply might not be appropriate to meet the what? The demand. So the demand might be up here, so there might be thus a gap. Then it begs the question, how do we fill that gap? We can fill that gap through recruiting strategies. We can have internal development strategies, transfer people in. We can use contingent labor. There's a host of things that we can do to fill that gap. But that strategic discussion isn't worthwhile unless it's supported by data. In other words, we have confidence in the projections. We have confidence that we've actually distilled the business strategy down to the talent required to execute on it. So this is the essence of workforce planning, and there's other variables that we'll talk about when we actually get together, but I just wanted to introduce the concept because you'll see graphs like this when we're actually together, and I want you to start thinking about how that might apply to your current work. The other concept is, of course, workforce analytics. When you hear workforce analytics, I'd like you to think of the word linkage. Linkage. I don't pronounce it very well. Linkage research effectively means this. We have to know the outcome that we're trying to achieve. So what is the outcome, say, our VP wants to achieve? The outcome is quite often financial in orientation. And it begs the question, what are the drivers of that financial outcome? Some of those drivers can be operational related, so productivity, innovation, and so forth. Other outcomes might be customer related, so customer satisfaction, might be market related as well, so certain patterns in the marketplace. Whatever they are, there's certain what I would call upstream drivers of these downstream outcomes. And it doesn't take very long for us to go upstream to identify drivers that are what? That are related to, you guessed it, people or talent. Then it begs the question, do we have metrics that can identify how these talent factors affect these downstream outcomes? In other words, is retention affecting innovation? Is employee engagement affecting productivity? Can we storyboard something that we can in turn apply data to tell a story here? Okay, this linkage model, and again we'll talk about this, is the basis. It's effectively a set of hypotheses. And they're not our hypotheses, they're the hypotheses that we gather by asking intelligent questions to our internal customer. Again, we'll get more to that during the day, but I just want to socialize this a bit. How do people affect downstream outcomes in the customer domain, operational domain, and in turn the financial domain? We'll again explore how to build such models. And you don't have to do this right out of the gate. This is more of a mental model than it is a practical model where you're drawing bubbles and the like. Again, when you think about workforce analytics, think of linkage. You know, the systematic thinking is going to be critical to being effective at that. And again, you're not going to do this linkage research. That's for someone probably like Kirsten to do, or at least help you out with. But you cannot do that work unless you can create that mentally first and document it. With workforce planning, going back to that, the two words that I want you to hold on to, and I alluded to them at the outset, capacity and capability. So with capability first, do we have the right people in the right place at the right time? Capacity, do we have enough of them? So capability and capacity for workforce planning, workforce analytics, linkage. I want you to hold on to those concepts. Ultimately, what are we doing here? We want to drive change. That's what we want to do. Planned, positive change is what we're going after. How do we drive change? There's three principles that I want you to think about, and to help make it sticky, and I'm doing this at great risk. I'm not too bad. Bear with me. Yeah, you guessed it. It's an elephant. I didn't do very bad. You're going to have to congratulate me on this. An elephant. And there's a rider. I'm not going to draw a rider, but I will draw a path. Bear with me here. We need to speak to the rider, we need to speak to the elephant, and we need to clarify the path. What I'm talking about here is a very weird yet sticky way of driving change in individuals and organizations. In other words, we have to educate our internal customer on what's possible and these concepts. we have to inspire them that it matters. That if we do this and do it well, so as we're questioning them, getting better insight, that it's actually going to help them personally, and it's going to help the organization. And finally, we're going to have to clarify. We're going to have to clarify how all this is going to make their lives better, how we're going to actually make it happen. So we're going to educate, inspire, and clarify. And in fact, this is exactly what we're going to do next week. I'm going to impart some knowledge to you all. I'm going to inspire you that no matter where you sit in the organization, no matter your role, that you can leverage this work and have it drive additional value in your organization. And finally, I want to clarify how to actually make that happen. Okay, and so this is the same principle, same framework, if you will, that you can apply when you actually go to your internal customers within your organization. One other thing that I'll add that came to mind, which I believe is critically important as well. You all exist in what I would call the operational work stream. There are three work streams that we'll talk about: a strategic work stream, an operational work stream, and a technological work stream. The strategic work stream is effectively your internal customers, VPs and what have you. Operational work stream are those who are actually doing the analysis. The technology work stream are those data stewards who are responsible for the data systems and the data within those systems throughout the employee life cycle. So the HRMS, the LMS, employee surveys, what have you. In the operational work stream, of which most of you sit, we have to understand both. We have to understand what data assets are available. We also have to understand the needs of our internal customers. So I would like you to hold on to that concept. And of course, we'll go through it in more detail next week. So there are several things that I'd like to explore with you now, but I, of course, don't have time. We're going to have ample time when we're together. If you have questions leading up to the day, contact Barbara, Kirsten, myself, and we'll get those fielded so we're hitting the ground running when we're together. As I wrap up here, I'd like to drive home something that is very, very important to me. Workforce planning and analytics has received a lot of press over the last few years, and rightly so. There's a host of systems throughout the employee life cycle, as I just mentioned. The data within those systems are assets of the organization. It's like you have a computer on your desk, you have pens and paper. Those are all assets that you utilize to drive value. Similarly, data within the systems throughout the employee life cycle, if they're not utilized, if they're not regarded as assets and used to create something of value, then it's like having a computer and not using it. So we have to be very creative and resourceful in putting that data together, telling stories that instill confidence and drive the positive plan change that we seek. If we do that, people benefit. There's a tangible, real benefit. We're not going to be celebrated. We're not going to have parades for us, of course. But at the same time, we're going to know that the work we did made a difference. That's why I do this work. That's why I imagine you all got into the HR talent domain, and obviously in your organization, given what you all do, it's critically important. So I super look forward to next week, and again, if you have any questions leading up to the day, my email will be available, so reach out to me and I'll gladly provide the best response I can. So looking forward to it. Thank you.